Welcome to day number 11 of our class. This class day, we are going to look into other functions and formulas we use in data analysis. And so far, we've exhausted all the necessary functions and formulas you can think of for data analytics. We started with digesting the date and time function. Then we move into the text functions, which then ushered us into the logical functions. In that sense, we also entered the lookup and reference functions, which we just did yesterday. But today, we are going to be looking into the math and trig function and some statistical functions that we use in data analysis. In this math and trig function, pay attention to the usage of those functions when it comes to having some logical statements added to it. And I'm going to focus on the sum if down to the count blank. So the sum if and the sum ifs are math and trig functions. The other math and trig functions that is used for analysis, that's when you are dealing with mathematical data sets or research analysis. But sum if and sum ifs, aside the sum, are some math and trig functions that we use in data analytics. It's also inclusive in some of our arithmetic functions that we use that help us to get the results we want to achieve. Then from the average if down to the count blank are some statistical functions that are basic, aside the ones we treated before. Remember, we had to treat about some statistical functions that we use for analysis, which includes the descriptive statistics, the mean, the mode, the median, the inferential statistics such as the correlation, the regression, analysis of variance, and ANOVA. So these are the functions and formulas, as well as important tools which will help assist us in driving out the results we need for our analysis. So we want to make sure that we remember all these functions. Watch these videos and pen down your notes. Remember that this video is recorded and always uploaded in the Mdth YouTube channel. So we encourage you to please hit the button so that you can get notified whenever the videos are uploaded. It will help you to stay on the track. Because once we are done with these math and trig functions now, the next thing we are going to be looking into is some advanced part of Excel for data analytics. The logical statements, the lookup and reference are part of the advanced Excel functions. We are going to look up to find out some other advanced Excel properties which we are going to use as our day-to-day activities goes by as data analysts. And those functions or operations or exercises includes the data validation, it includes the conditional formatting, it includes the pivot table and summarization. All of these play a role in our analysis, and it helps us to come out with the needed results for the stakeholders' problem to be solved. So having understood this, let us look into some math and trig functions and some statistical functions we are going to be using for this, our customers' order data. So let us expand our ribbons and let's get to work. So for the math and trig functions, let us quickly explain what all these functions stands for. The sum if function is a function that adds the cell of a given criteria or condition. So you sum on the usual, you just sum, that's mathematical, right? But then you can add some condition or criteria to those summed cells. When that happens, you have added what is called a logical statement into the existing sum function. In that regard, it gives yield to sum if. But then the sum ifs is like the if statement. The if statement checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns value if it is true. The same thing happens to the sum ifs. The sum ifs adds the cell of some conditions. So if there are conditions that you want the cell to result and populate, you must add or use the SUMIFs function. Now, when it's adding those cells, you are going to stipulate conditions. If this is this, then this. If that is then this. These conditions will help the Excel calculator, which is the formula in place, to know what you want to do and give you the needed result as supposed to be. The average if and the average is the same and one and similar with the SUMIF and SUMIFs. But the difference is that the average if and average ifs gives a return of averages. The sum gives a return of the sum or the addition of a given cell and the criteria. But the average if and average ifs give the average of a given criteria or condition and returns also for some conditions which are supposed to be met. That is for the SUMIFs, average if, and average ifs. So if you can understand the SUMIF and SUMIFs very well, you can easily flow with the average if function. The next function is the count function. This count function is a wonderful function that also helps us to know the frequency of values in a cell. So the count function counts the number of cells or the frequency of the particular value in the cells we have chosen. Then the count if, just like the count SUMIF and average if, the count ifs counts the number of cells of a given condition or criteria. So you must have a criteria or condition you want to meet for you to count that particular cells or that range of choice. But for the count ifs, you are meant to do the same thing you do with SUMIFs and average ifs, where you count the number of cells given some conditions. Then the count A and count blank are different but can be confusing. The count A is easier to go by, same as the count blank. But most times, analysts such as beginners, intermediate, and advanced make do with the both of them in order to understand what is happening in their data sets. Now, when you have a data, you understand that there might be blanks in that data. So when there are blanks, what do you do? How do you even know that the data sets or a range of data values has or has blanks in them? For you to know, you use the count blank function. The count blank function assists you to find the cells that are empty, while the count A function assists you to find the cells that are not empty. So these are the functions that we're going to look into tonight. We're going to see how they play a role in analysis, and subsequent time from next week, we're going to see how we can use all these functions we've treated so far for this week in digesting data, which involves preparing data, that's data prepping, and also organizing data for analysis. So let's kick off with the first of them, which is the SUMIFs. So I'm going to copy this particular column, the cells within, and I'm going to be pasting them here. Then I'm going to copy the title that I've made already. I'm going to paste it just here. So I'm going to merge and center, make it bold, increase the text font. So for SUMIF and SUMIFs, we are going to be looking into almost the same thing we did with the logical statements. Now, what is that? We're going to get on to looking out for some necessary values that we need. Remember, we're talking about sum. So when we talk about sum and averages, we are mentioning that we want to get hold of the cells and down to the price per unit. So we are going to have this over here. We're going to find the sum of sales if. Now, what is the if there? So if they are made in either categories of choice. So let's notice that the categories we have are office supply, furniture, and technology. So I'm going to put down the categories we have: office supplies, furniture, and technology. So we're going to find the sum if and ifs of them, as well as the average if and ifs of them. So let's just come down here and paste these guys over here. So I'm going to have this for sum if and sum ifs, that's 3. There's this here. For this, I'm going to have this. I'm going to place this here. So I'm trying to organize this to be suitable for the analysis we want to run as regarding this. So we have this as sum if. So I'm going to quickly merge and center. Right. Then for this, I'm going to have something like this. So I can quickly merge and center over here. I'm trying to arrange this properly so I'm gonna have a well-organized data that will tell the story of what we are looking for, right? So we have a space in between that can separate the sum if and sum if. So let me just color it with kind of shady colors like this. Then this as well, and then for this as well. So this separates this from this. Then the average ifs and count if. So let's take the average if now. I'm going to put it over here. So you can get the average ifs of the office supplies and the rest of them. Then the same with count. Let's go for count if. So count if. So this is tentative, right? We are only making a practice. So you have jurisdiction to utilize what you've learned in this particular lesson for your own reports when you are being given a project to work on, right? So count A and count black will come later on. So let's look into the sum if first. Now we want to sum the sales made in office supply, furniture, and technology, same as the discounts, quantity, and the price per unit. This is our target. That's what we want to utilize. That's what we want to gain at the end of the day, right? So you are asked as an analyst, Mr. Francis, Mr. Kechuku, Precious, please, I need to know the sales we've made in office supplies alone. I need to know the sales we made in furniture alone. I need to know the sales we've made in technology alone. Now, those are a kind of question that can come to you from your stakeholder, which obviously you can get using the sum if and the sum if. That if you know how to use the math and trig and some statistical functions, and we are doing that just now. So let's begin. To enter the sum if, we need to go to our formula bar. As always, every function and formula starts with a equality sign. Then we enter the function we're looking for, that's the sum. And as usual, you see that we have other semantics of sum coming up, which can be used depending on the project you're working on. So sum if is what you're going for. And our range, what's the range, criteria, and sum range? So the range is the column that contains your criteria. Just the same way we did for the lookup and referencing. The range is the column that contains the criteria or the condition we are looking for. Now, we are looking for what? Office supply. So we are going to go to the column that contains office supply, which is segments. So we are choosing all there is in segments. That's our range. Now, what criteria are we looking for? Obviously, the criteria here is what? Office supply. So I'm going to use the comma, and to insert a text string in a function, we say we always use open quotation and close quotation. So office supply, right? Okay, the column of choice should be column H. Sorry about that. So it should be column H. Column H should be the column or the range of our criteria. And we are looking for what office supplies. Now, what's the sum range? We are summing for what? Sum of cells. So we are going to tell the sum range to be what? In the column of I, that's cells. So I'm going to use F4 as we did yesterday to lock up the references we've made so that it will not change, right? And then I'll close my parentheses, hit enter. What's there? Sum if this is our range, which is the location that contains the column that contains our criteria, and these are criteria of it. Okay, I didn't put a comma here. Sorry about that. So there should be a comma to separate these two. And there you go. So when you hit enter, it gives us a result, right? So let me freeze this particular column I could normally do. Let me fix this. Let me freeze this location. So freeze pane is fine. So you have something like this, just as we normally have. So here, the sum of cells made for office supply is 532.18. So I can still drag down to the column and it will remain the same because we have used the $ to lock up the column and the row, right? That's what we need. So the only thing we need to do now is to change office supply, which is the criteria or condition we are looking for, into the criteria of choice that we have in the next cell. So this for furniture, then we put for home office, technology. Fine. So we see these are the sum of cells made in office supplies, furniture, and technology. In office supplies, the cells we have $532.81. In technology, the sum of cells is $4,103.84, while in technology, we have $399.68. So let's look into for discount, quantity, and price per unit. So for discounts, it still depends the same syntax, right? So equal to sum if. Our range is still going to be column H, and we'll start with F4. Now, first category or condition of choice is office supplies. Our next is sum range, right? So we can't have a sum if there is no sum range, and the sum range is column J. J, J, F, it up, and those are hit enter. We have the sum of counts to supply 0.5. We go to before furniture. So the term and the next thing changing it's that the sum discount given to each category. These are categories, so let me here categories. So we know that here is actually working on. So I want to make the yes, this is better. So we know the difference between the categories and then the conditions we are giving in. So this is the sum of discounts given for office supplies, which is at 55%. Sum of discount given for furniture is 11%. Sum of discount given to technology is 13%. So you can see that maybe because the office supplies had the highest discounts given, that is why they are having those sales. Because we see here, The higher they sell the discount, the lower the sales made for some of these categories. If you notice here, for sales and discounts, office supply had the highest of discount at 55% at 0.55, and it made the sales of 532.81. The technology had the second highest, which is 13%, and it made a sales of 399.68. So we cannot say that because of the discount, that is why they are selling less. Because if you compare the office supply with furniture, we are having some discrepancies in the quantity of sales made, the sum of sales made, sorry. But over here in discount for furniture, you notice that furniture had the least discount at 11%, and sum of sales is 4,103.84, right? So we can actually say that because of low discounts given on furniture category, we are having high sales. But we can't say that it is because of high discounts that made office supplies to have low sales, because when we try to correlate these sales made in categories, we are finding some outliers in the sense of technology, all right? So the outlier there is the office supply, because the discount is 0.55, which is going to be a far location compared to 0.11 and 13, even though the sales are also distant apart. So you see how we are using the knowledge we have of data analytics and statistics to make sure that we come to a conclusive and important data-driven decisions, right? So next is quantity, the same syntax again, sum if. Notice that what changes in this our use of sum if is the column we are referencing, or the range that contains the criteria we are looking at for. So for quantity now, we are going to go to column K, right? So the range first will still remain category, which is column H. Use F4 to lock it up. Then category, first category is office supply. And the next is the sum range, which is what? Quantity. So let's see what we can deduce from this. So let's lock it up and hit enter. And let's do something. I'm going to drag down the column over here and change office supplies to furniture. Then change office supplies again to technology. So you see that technology had only 7 of it sold and it made 399, while office supplies had their highest quantity sold, followed by furniture. So it is now relevant for us to say that because of quantity sold, that's why we are having low or high sales in either of these categories. Now, discount now does not have effect on this, because we have seen that discounts have discrepancy when it comes to the column and cause zero, leading to us having to find out that yes, there is outliers, because we could draw this in a scatter plot. You know that outliers have been existing in such particular column of data. So now for the price per unit, only thing I'm going to do now is to drag what I have in quantity over to price per unit, and I'll come over here and I'll change the column of sum range, which is K. Now K is for quantity, price per unit is column L, so we're changing K to L, right? So from K to L, we now have price per unit. We have this. So the same thing for this as well. Change K to L. We have price per unit. And K to L, we have price per unit. Now you see the sum of price per unit of all of this we have now. Furniture still runs highest. If you calculate price per unit for furniture, you see that it has the highest, followed by office supplies and then technology. And because of understanding this function, and because of using it, we have seen some factors that can affect sales made in either of the categories, right? First, we have seen that quantity sold affected sales made. That is really the fifth type of statistical analysis, which is causation, right? Causation. So you see whether the sixth type, sorry, the fifth is descriptive, sorry, EDA. So causation led these cells to be the way it is. Although that same causation might also be applicable for discount. Notice here the quantity sold is 7 for technology and discount is just 13%. Now look at the sales made, 399.68. Notice again here the quantity sold for furniture is 17. Then there was list discount, which is 0.11, now is 11%. And these are the sales made. Then come again to quantity sold for office supply. It have more quantity sold, but there was a lot of discounts given on office supply that led it to have low sales. So because we know statistics, because we have discussed statistics over the past weeks, we have seen that using this function that we have used now, we can understand the causation that can lead to some effects that happens in our data set. And notice again the price per unit. The total price per unit for each of these categories are all here. And the technology had the list as well for price per unit, followed by office supplies and then furniture. So this alone has given us an insight of what we can infer or what we can conclude that actually happened in these categories results. Let us continue with the sum ifs. The sum ifs. Let's find out what happened in the sum ifs. All right? For sum ifs now, we are going to be using multiple condition or multiple criteria. Now, I'm going to come to sum if and let us look at for the same office supplies in maybe a different segment. And we have different segments such as home office, consumer, and corporate, right? So let's say we have this home office here and consumer and corporate. So I'll allow you to explore other sections of using sum ifs, but we are going to only make use of this singular segment in either of the categories involved. So let's kick off. Here we enter the function sum ifs. So first thing first is sum range. Other than sum if it asks you for the range criteria and then sum range. But sum ifs asks you the sum range first because you know that there is a lot of criteria you're going to give it afterwards. So it first asks you for the sum range first to have that in handy. So sum range is the cells, which is column I. Then the criteria range you are looking for, the first criteria range you are looking for is a category, right? Because you are looking for category before home office. So category is the first criteria you're looking for. Then what are we looking for? Office what? Supplies. Office supplies. Then what's the next thing we are looking at for is the next condition. Right? The next condition there is criteria range 2. That's the next condition. Because there are some ifs takes on some conditions. You can have to 5 conditions, up to 10 conditions, depending on what's the objective of your analysis. So the next condition is criteria range 2, which is on the segment, that's column G, right? Then what are we looking for here? Home office. Home office. Home office is what we are looking for. Then we are done. So what we did now is to tell Excel that we need to we need to get the sum of sales. We need to get the sum of sales we need to get the sum of sales of a category called office supplies, which was made in the segment home office. So an instance you can use to understand this is when you enter a particular school, and in that school there is from crèche to upper grade. Upper grade is now what they call high school or secondary school. So when you enter that school, it's like you entering a particular data set. Then now you say you want to find out the students whose age is 14 in class of grade 1. Now you have how many conditions there? 2. The first condition you have there is the age, 14 years. Then the second condition is the class, grade 2, right? That's how the sum ifs can be understood to be. So here, we say we want to find the sum of cells made in office supplies category under the home office segment. So when you hit enter now, it gives you the sum of cells made in office supplies category under the home office segment. And you notice that the sum of cells will also vary when you sum for office supplies category under the home consumer. It also will vary when you find office supplies category under the corporate. So I'll allow you to explore that at your leisure to better understand what happened in individual categories and segments. Now, this is exposing you to business analysis where you tend to narrow down to the important parameters, the important fields that answers the question of choice. It helps you to narrow down to what can sales, that's column I. So I'm going to reference column I and then use F4 to lock the column. Then the criteria range is furniture. Then the next criteria is criteria range 2. Remember, it's some ifs, so you have to have up to 2 or more category criteria. So the range 2 is the segment, which is column G. We lock it up. I are choosing consumer as our desired criteria. Now, that does not mean that we cannot do for more than 2 conditions. We can say, okay, what is the sum of cells made in furniture category under the segment consumer on name of a customer, Adam Bellevance? Then you can see what we made from Adam Bellevance, just like that, right? So it can still be like, say, we want to find out the sum of cells made in the East, made in Imo State, under East, inside the country Nigeria, right? So that is the kind of question that can still lead us to using the sum ifs function. So when we do this, we have a result. Now it tells us that we have $14,294.9 made from furniture under consumer. And the next is for technology. So equal to sum ifs. Our sum range is still cells. All right. So we lock it up F4, comma. Our criteria range 1, that's the first criteria, is a category. So we have this. We also lock it up. So let's select it entirely. We lock it up, comma. Then the next is to enter the criteria, which is what? Technology. Technology. The criteria range 2, that's the second criteria of choice, is segments. That's column G. We lock it up. comma, then we are looking for what? Technology. So we're looking for corporates. So there was no cells made for technology under the corporate segment. Let's see whether that is true. Oh, yes, it is very true. Because over here we have corporates here. We have corporates here. They are all made in home office supplies and furniture. So none of them are made in what technology. So you see the result is very much accurate. So to get for discount quantity price per unit, what I'll do is I will highlight the cells and drag them down to this end. So what I will do now is to change the sum range only. I wouldn't go over to entering the criteria range 1, criteria 1, criteria range 2, criteria 2 any longer. All I need to do is to change the sum range. So sum range was for column I, that's for cells. Now for discount, it's going to be column J. All right, so I'm going to have to delete everything here, highlight and delete, then select column J as our sum range, right? And then lock it up once again. So here I have the sum range as the discount column, criteria range 1 as the category column, containing office supplies at the criteria 1, criteria range 2 as the segment column, containing home office as criteria 2. So when I hit enter, it changes to 0.2, which is the sum ifs made, that's the sum of discount made from office supplies under the home office segment. It has about 20% discount. So here too, I'm going to change this to J and change this to J as well. And I have this. Then for this, again, I change it to J and change this as well to J. We have this. So you see, we've gotten the sum of discounts made in all of these categories and their segments. So for this again, for quantity, I'm going to change from J to K. All right. So the only thing I need to do here is to just change the sum range from what it was before, because this is like copying an already existing function to other functions. So that's what we have here. So the results is what we have just here. You notice again here that the quantity sold for office supplies category under the home office segment is 14, 5 for furniture and consumer, none for technology and corporate, which is actually true because we are going to have none altogether, right? So the next is price per unit, which is column L and column L. Price per unit, column L and column L. And that price per unit, column L and column L. So you see why it's important for us to always use the absolute reference when it comes to logical statements, math and trig and statistical functions, and also the lookup and reference function. Because of using the absolute referencing, we can be able to easily get this result. All we need to do was to get the first three, which are the sum of sales for office supplies under home office, sum of sales for consumer under for furniture under consumer, sum of sales of corporate technology under corporate. And when we got this result, we now have to copy them down to the other columns of choice and then change the sum range only, and that answers our questions. And that also helps us to solve the problem that you are trying to get from the analysis. The next now is average if. Now, average if is the same syntax with sum if. The difference is that you have to change sum if to sum ifs. Now, notice that in sum if, we have equal to sum if, the range first, then the criteria, and then the sum range. Notice that it's the same thing for average if. So we go again, equal to average if. That starts with the range once again, just like the sum if does. So the range we are looking at for is the category range. Then we lock it up. Then the criteria we're looking for first hand is the office supply, office supplies. Then our average range now, no longer sum range, is what the sales, which is column I. So what we did here was to do the same thing we did in the sum if. The only difference that is no longer going to be sum if as a function, but average if. So here we're looking at average sales made for office supply. And obviously, we said that average is the sum of the entire values in the cell divided by the number of values we have. Now let's see what results to give us. Now this means that what this average if we do is to calculate 532.81 and divide it by 39. 532.81 divided by 39. So let's see what it does here. We have 53.281. If you want to use arithmetic for this, we can use arithmetic to do this as well. So you might say equal to this divided by this. See the results we have. 13.667. But here I have this as the result. So I want to look at that later on and see what happened. Let's come to the furniture equal to average if the range of choice is still cells, which is I. Then not cells. The range of choice is column H. Then the criteria now is furniture. Why the average is cells. You see the result there now? Apologies for the break in network and pausing in activity. Let us continue with the next average if function for furniture. So inside of our formula bar once again, average if, and the range is category as usual, right? Lock it up. The criteria I'm looking for here is technology. The average range is what? Cells. So we lock it up again and hit enter. Now you see, notice that the average if function is a little bit similar to the sum if function, just like we mentioned initially, right? And just like we did for the sum if, I'm going to select the entire cells here, drag them to the right. And all I need to do is to change from cells to discount. That's changing from I, which is the average range, to J, right? I to J. Same thing for this as well. So see how important it is to use the absolute referencing to lock up a particular syntax which you have in your formula, right? So this is what we have as the average of discounts given per each category. Average of discounts given per each category. So this was J and J2 to J15 to J15 to J15. So let's do the same for the quantity. Now this is going to be for column K. That's our focus here, right? Column K. The next is still column K. Column K. The next again is column K. Column K. Then the next is going to be column L. So you see, we don't need to go over to start writing the syntax from the beginning. All we need to do is to change the average range. So column L. Next is column L and column L, right? And this gives us the results we are looking for. So we have the average of price per unit for office supplies to be 19,307. Average of price per unit for furniture to be 254.1125, and average of technology to be 55.615. So this is quite interesting for us to see how we have used the average function to achieve these results. And the last two functions are going to be the other function I'm going to look to now is the average ifs, count if, and count ifs, right? So what I'm going to do is to copy one of the sum ifs, paste in the average if, right? So what am I going to do now? I'm going to go to the syntax of my formula bar and change sum ifs to average ifs. And that solves the problem. So here's the average range, which is column I, that's for cells. Then our condition, as usual, is what we have right here, and then hit enter. Now you see the average of the cells made for office supply under the home office is 0.080.05. So when we drag down the column, we now change the office supplies to being furniture. So instead of doing that, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy the sum ifs for furniture, paste it here, and change the function name to average ifs. Hit enter. Then since I've copied, I'll copy again for sum ifs for technology and corporates, paste it here, and then change function name from sum ifs to average ifs. And I have this. Now, this is going to give us a divide by a zero error because there's nothing there, right? Sum if returns 0 or true. So because there's nothing sold for technology under corporate, it will return a divide by 0 error, which is normal because we say that it is when you get a particular number sum added together, you can divide by the total number of it, but there's nothing to divide with. Neither is there anything to add with. Therefore, we have a divide by 0 error. Now, in this regard, now we can use the function called if error to replace this divide by 0 error to something important, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to come to this function. At the beginning of it, we add a function called if error, right? And if error, which is if the entire value average ifs had an error, what should we call it? We say that if there's error, we say not available. So NOT, not available. That's NA, right? Close our center. Now this is just like what we do with the index and match, with the index, with the match, and the VLOOKUP. So if there is an error in this our syntax, return NA, and NA means not available. So hit enter, and here we go. So because you don't have anything in technology under corporate, and when we are summing it, we return it to turn 0 or true. Hence, when we want to make it applicable to what you are working with in average ifs, we use the if error at the back of the function in order to return a particular result, NA, meaning not available. So now we are done with the sum ifs, average if, and average ifs. Let us look into the count if and count ifs. Now let's count the number of occurrence, quantities, categories occur. So what is the number of occurrence that office supplies occur? The frequency for furniture and frequency for technology. To achieve that, we use the count if. So we go to formula by again, equal to count if. So the range we are looking for is what? Category, comma. So let's lock it up first. Let's lock it up. Fine. And what's the category? Name is office supplies. So in this column H, office supplies occurred 10 good times. We go again to the next column, equal to count if. The range is still column H, and we lock it up, and we are looking for furniture. So let's see how many times furniture occurred. 2 times. So the next is technology, equal to count if. So the range is column H. We lock it up, and the criteria is what? Technology. So let's open print. Remember that whenever you're typing in a text string in your formula bar or any syntax of choice, you use the open quotation and close quotation. Here, except we know that, okay, you want to return a text string, or you're looking for a text string. You have this. So you see, the frequency of occurrence for office supplies is 10. Why that for furniture is 2, and that for technology is 2. That's 14 altogether. But still yet, it doesn't still mean that office supplies will make more sales than furniture and technology. Are we seeing that? So irrespective of the 2 that was sold for furniture, it's made more sales than what was sold in office supplies and technology altogether. Because if you add 532.81 and 399.68 together, it will not even give you up to 4,000, which is what the furniture used to sum out all of them. Now for the count ifs, it's just the same with the average ifs and sum ifs, where we say that we want to count or get the frequency of a particular criteria in a given condition, right? So condition criteria is the same thing. I just wrote a blender. So now let's see what we have here. Equal to count ifs. Now the criteria range 1 is category, which is column H, and we are looking for office supplies. Then criteria range 2 is segments. Lock it up, and we're looking for what? Home office. And this is what we have. So the quantity or the frequency or quantity sold for office supplies, or the frequency, let's do the word frequency since it's count. The frequency of office supplies category sold under the segment home office is just 3. So let's check out for the other ones too. Equal to count ifs. The first criteria is the category, which is column H. Lock it up. I'm looking for furniture. The next category is column criteria range is obviously, oh, sorry about that. Criteria range is going to be, the criteria range 1 is the office supply, right? So we lock it up, comma. The criteria I'm looking for is technology. Then the next is criteria range 2, which is segments. That's G. Lock it up. And we have corporate. So it's going to return 0 because there's nothing there, right? 0. So we've seen how we can utilize the count ifs and the count if as well. We always said that the count if and count ifs is also similar to sum if and sum ifs, or similar to average if and average ifs. How? Because in if, a single if that occurs in any arithmetic or mathematical function means that it is only going to be concerned about a certain criteria only. But if it occurs as an ifs, it means multiple conditions or certain number of conditions. That is the difference between the if occurring in any arithmetic function or any statistical function, and ifs occur in any mathematical function or statistical function. Then the last of them is the count A and count blank, which is also going to look into count. Now, count is the frequency of the entire particular range of data. So how many do we have here? So let's put into count, and we are looking into this as our range of data. So from A2 to A11, what do we have as the result? We have 84 values, right? 84 values. So in the entire row from A2 to the last of them, that's L15, we have 84 cells properly filled in. So if you count it, 14 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 14 times 12 will give you 84, as the case may be. That is the number of cells that have been filled in by this particular data set. So the entire cells are 84 in number. That is what we have from A2 to L15. So count is a function that returns a data set, a cells that are not what? Empty. Right? But count blank returns cells that are what? Empty. So let's see what happens here. Equal to count A. So I'm looking at empty or not empty, right? So we have this over here. So none of them are what? Empty. Remember what you said. Count the cells that are not what? Empty. So none of them are what? Empty. You have all 162 of the contents rightly not empty. All right? So this is A2 to L15, A2 to L15. So count blank. It helps us to count blanks. So we know the function as it is, count blanks. So the range we are looking at for is this entirety. analysis. So there are no blanks in entirety. So if you want to see that the count A and count blank and the count function all goes in with the same syntax, the same range of value, which is A1, A2 to L15, showing us that the entire cells we have here are not blank. The entire cells we have here contains values, right? So this is how we utilize all these functions in our analysis. These are mathematical and trigonometry. So I should remove trigonometry here. So I'm going to just call it a mathematical. So these are mathematical function, right? Math and some statistical function. We say that for math functions, they are the sum if and sum ifs. Then for statistical functions are the average if, the count A, the count blank, the average ifs, average count if, and count ifs. These are all the statistical functions. Some of them, aside the ones we've already treated, right? Those ones are like advanced statistics, which you've already learned in Excel here. So when we call back tomorrow, we are going to see what else we are going to discuss in our part together. And in our part together, we have digested everything we need to know about Excel functions and formulas. We have also digested the basic statistical functions and formulas. And we've even treated about the statistical functions, the statistics that we need as a data analyst, which include the descriptive statistics, the correlation, the regression, the hypothesis testing, inclusively the analysis of variance. All right. So in our next class come tomorrow, we are going to enter into Advanced Excel Part 1. Advanced Excel Part 1. Here we are going to look into using other tools in this spreadsheet Excel. We're going to look into other tools in this spreadsheet called Excel, and those tools includes the data validation. Well, how did this happen? How do we use it? It also includes the conditional formatting. How do we use it? The text to column for different varieties of interests we might have, and that will help us understand the first part of advanced Excel, which will usher us into pivot table and analysis, right? So this is the first part of Excel Advanced. The other advanced Excel includes understanding Power Pivot and data modeling in Excel. It also includes us understanding how to use some of the developer options in Excel, such as the macros and VBA for automation. That will be when you step up from beginner level to becoming an intermediate. All right. So these are the things we have seen so far in functions and formulas for Excel. And we are happy to have finished this part. We are happy to have finished Introduction to Data Analytics, Data Entry, Formatting and Organization of Data, Basic Statistics Functions and Formulas, Statistics for Data Analysis, and also Excel Functions and Formulas. Now we are happy to have ventured into Advanced Excel Part 1. Please watch the YouTube videos to understand what happens in the classes. Practice often. You already have the data sets at your disposal. Practice as much as you can for you to have this we have treated so far in your memory and easy to come by. We just have barely 6 days to round up our section, which is just 2 weeks. So please, we beg of you to become very much serious in taking up all this. So after our class tomorrow, we are going to have our second assessment, where we are going to utilize all this we have learned for the past 2 to 3 weeks to get our hands dirty with data. So thank you once again for joining the call today. I really appreciate. See you tomorrow when we hop into Advanced Excel Part 1. Have a wonderful night rest.